Yo, 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 yo. What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
How the hell are you?
I'm feeling fantastic.
I know why.
Why?
Because we got high while you were trimming your what?
My babies.
Your babies. You cut down your babies today.
I did. I trimmed my tree.
Yep, and we're hanging them.
We have two in the backyard. I trimmed one. I'm going to do the other one tomorrow.
Yep.
Super cute.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. And like I said, we got a little baked before the show, but we're about to get even more normal because we are going to dab for the first time on the show. We got a new toy, and a friend of mine sent me 3 different has-rosins that I've been dying to try from him. And we got some Triangle Kush, some Blackberry Kush, which we've smoked both of these so far, and they are fantastic. What'd you say, Mrs. Weedman?
Fantastic, yes.
And we're trying the third one that I got, and this is Terp Cherry. So, Mrs. Weedman,
fire it up.
Fire it up, our little gizmo gadget we're smoking out of. We have not smoked. We love hash. I love hash. I love. I've talked about this hundreds of times. I love me some hash rosin, old school hash, all of it. Give me hash. But we have always said the torch thing scares Mrs. Weedman. It's not always fun. It's an art to use smoking out of a rig. Very nice, Mrs. Weedman.
Yeah.
And so we use it, but on the show it's not very easy to do while you're on the show to torch it up and talk. So we got this cool little gizmo. Oh, I can smell that coming through this thing. Oh my goodness. This is the Terp Cherry. Speaks for itself, and I'm not even hitting it yet. I'm just smoking it. I'm just smelling it.
Wow. That's strong. Like flavorful in a good way strong.
Oh, wow, that burnt clean too.
Super nice.
Oh man, you're gonna take another
flavors. Hit. Yeah.
So
I might regret it.
We are smoking hash on the show. Wow, that is terpy. For the first time, we're doing hash on the show. So we'll see how this experience and how well we do. But we got some story time to tell first, before we go into articles. So first, it was my birthday.
Yes. Happy birthday, Mr. Weedman.
On Tuesday. Yesterday.
For us,
and first and foremost, I'd like to thank Mrs. Weedman, Grandma Weedman, Grandma Weed, Polly, O-Dog, Shoddy, and O-Dog's boyfriend, Amber Dave. I'd also like to thank my nieces for coming and just coming to celebrate this old man's party, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Weedman and Grandma Weed got tickets to the White Sox-Yankee game. I'm a Yankee fan. I grew up in New York, and I've been a Yankee fan my whole life. And we tailgated in the parking lot, and it was awesome. We had so much fun, smoking some big fat doinks, drinking some beers, some high life. And Mrs. Weedman put together a nice little buffet of just beautiful snacks. It was amazing. Some snacks. And I want to say thank you. So we went into the stadium, and they were giving away sailor hats, and we got in there late because we were tailgating until about 6:40 when we
found out that it was yachty night, so they were giving away like captain hats. Yes.
That's socks across the top. But Paulie wanted one. We got to the gates around 6:40. They had already given all of them out. So we go in the stadium. We get to our seats. We're sitting by the Yankee bullpen in the bleachers.
Oh, the truth is coming out now.
Hold on. So, and we were just having a good time. Before we went to our seats, though, I was very, very high. Extremely high. And we all stopped at the bathroom because Grandma Weed always, of course, has to go to the bathroom. And and everybody said, okay. So I was talking to Paulie and bullshit. And I said, I should go to the bathroom too. And there was the women's door, and I saw that, and then I saw the men's sign, and I walked, and I took a right, and it was the wrong right.
It was a doorway too soon.
It was the exit door for the women's bathroom, and I'm looking down, walking in, just looking all high, just feeling good. Walking, all of a sudden I look up, and I'm like, and the first person I see is my mom, Grandma Weed, and I said, "Oh fuck, I'm in the women's bathroom."
Shit.
And she yells back, she goes, "What are you doing in the women's bathroom?" I'm like, like totally just fucked up my buzz. I was feeling so good. And of course I found the men's bathroom, but I was so embarrassed. I was probably beet red. And I was so stoned. And I get out and I tell everybody and everybody's laughing. And then we go to our seats and we had a great time. And there was a couple of balls being thrown out as the players do to the outfield. And Paulie missed one that was almost, he could have had it. He missed it. And there was a couple thrown by us and they were too far low, too far up. So I said, you know what? It was like the 6th inning. And I decided to go down closer to the wall to see if I can get. Here's the reason why. Grandma Weed said, if you don't catch me a ball, you're not my son. I was
Get
like,
out of
yo,
here.
that's fucked up, Grandma Weed. She said that. She said that. And so my whole thing was I had to catch my ma a ball. So I go down to this 6th inning. I go down to like, we're sitting in the 8th row off the wall. I go down to like the 3rd row, 2nd row. And all of a sudden, the outfielder tosses the ball, and I had this dead eye, and it looks like it wasn't going to go as far as it was. And I'm like, this is coming close to me. If I could just jump, I could probably catch this. Now, granted, our seats are 8 rows up. I'm at the 2nd, 3rd row now. This dumbass here, stoned to the bone, because I hit our pen a couple of times. It's a pretty strong pen, and some hash rosin that I smoked, and I was pretty high. And had a couple 2 tree in me, and I jump, and literally jumped over seats, but landed into the scorpion in the middle of my ass cheek, on the back of the chair, and half my body rolled over, and I was like slumped in this chair, and all of a sudden I'm like, did I break anything? And all of a sudden I got up. I'm like, holy shit!
But nobody was noticing because everyone was trying to get
the ball. So it was perfect. No one saw the assness that I made of myself by trying to jump and get this ball. And I
It was way over your head, by the way.
Oh, it was way because the ball was thrown to
me.
Mrs Weedman in the 8th row, and I thought. So I get up and I'm like, where'd the ball go? And Paulie saw what I did. He goes, what the fuck did you do? I said, thought I had a line on it, and I made the jump. And the little 12-year-old behind me goes, yeah, you jumped 3 seats backwards.
Yeah.
I don't know. He goes,
he saw it.
I don't know how you did that. You went backwards 3 seats, and you landed in a chair. And meanwhile, what I didn't realize was my jeans ripped.
Oh my gosh.
From my ass, my top of my ass to the bottom of the cheek, the whole jean was ripped. Because I must have caught it on the arm of the chair when I jumped. So I had a ripped pair of jeans the rest of the game, and everybody's making fun of me. And my Grandma Weed, so supportive, by the way. I'll tell you how much support I get from Grandma Weed. If you didn't go down to the 3rd row, you would have been right here to catch the ball. And poor Mrs. Weedman almost broke her hand trying to catch it for me. And I said, Ma, remember what you told me when we were before the game started, when we were down by the wall trying to talk to them, throw us a ball, that you said you would break a nail to catch a ball, and you didn't even try. And I said, Ma, you know what I almost did? I ripped my pants for you, Ma. I ripped my pants for you. And she started hitting me on the shoulder. So the rest of the game busted her chops. But I'm going to tell you this, Mr. Weedman's fucked up. His body's broke. Like Mike Tyson said in an interview one time, my back, it's broken. Well, my ass cheek is broke. My knee is fucked up. And I swear to God, I think my whole entire neck muscle is one just big tight soreness right now because I can't even lift my neck up off the bed. So yeah, 51-year-old person trying to jump too high, and he was also too high, went 3 seats backwards into a chair, and just happy birthday, Mr. Weedman. That was it.
But I will say that you went from being this wild, rambunctious fan to real quiet.
Oh man,
you got so quiet. It just kind of killed your killed your fun.
Killed my whole body.
Killed your whole fun.
But I had a blast. Yeah. So thank you, Mrs. Weedman, for a great birthday. It was so much fun. Thank you, fam. Thank you for all the birthday wishes out there, everybody who DM'd me and Facebooked me and all that stuff. I appreciate y'all out there texting me. I love you all. Thank you so much for all the birthday wishes. I'm so happy to still be here. So what else? What else were we supposed to talk about? Your
The
grow.
Yeah, my grow.
Your grow.
Done.
We smoked a little bit.
Yeah, we smoked a little tonight. I trimmed one of the 2 plants. Didn't have time for the second one today, so I'll finish it up tomorrow. But we're thinking I probably got
You got
maybe
some fat
2
nugs.
ounces. I got some fat nugs.
I think off of each plant you got 2 ounces.
I've got about 2 ounces.
Maybe 3.
And these little fatties were only like, maybe 20 inches tall.
But it's bigger
Fat.
than soda cans.
They just kept getting fatter and fatter.
Oh, huge buds. We'll post some pictures on our Instagram on Weedman 420 Chronicles and 8 Decades. But our breeding project worked.
Yeah.
So we took a couple one of the buds and we decarbed it just to try it. We've done it before. And you did what? You broke it up and what'd you find?
Seeds.
Some
Got some
beaners.
seeds.
We got some beaners, big
Yeah.
girl. Beaners.
Little babies.
Our breeding project worked. So excited.
So excited.
Yeah. So we'll see
we
how
can
many
do it again and again.
how many beaners we get, and we'll definitely give some to family and friends. And I have to ask Big Girl, will these be autos too? Because I'm a newbie grower. So
Right.
on the Grow Hour. So check it out. And then so proud of you on that grow.
Thanks.
Big fat
Well, you
buds.
helped.
I did.
You
I helped, but
counseled me.
it was your plants, and you did a great job.
You were my consultant.
Yes. And Big Girl.
And Big Girl.
Yeah.
Big help.
Yeah. So, but you did a fine job.
Thank you.
Big fat buds.
I
You
talked to those babies.
Yeah, you did. And they gave you luscious buds and beaners.
Yes, they did.
Beaners. I love it. I'm so excited. We got some beans.
Beaners.
We got some beans to grow and to give away. I don't know how many we're going to get. We only got we only was for one little tiny bud, and we got like 5 or 6 seeds.
Yeah, which is too many.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a pretty seedy plant.
It's okay.
But we try. We were
Yeah.
trying. We're
The
playing
next
around.
time we grow outdoor, we're not gonna probably breed. We're just
No.
gonna let it grow, and if we get a male, throw it away.
We're gonna
'Cause
throw it.
this
This
one,
time we kept it.
yeah, we
the
wanted
male.
to see what happened. It was our first experiment, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So, also, what did we do on Sunday, Mrs. Weedman?
We had a fantastic, freaking amazing day. It was the Brunch of Stoners first canniversary. So they had their, the full time around the moon, full time around the sun, however that saying goes. Which planet are we going around?
We're not going. We're going around the
They're
sun.
going around. We're going around the sun.
Yes.
My God, I'm high. Well, anyway, Brunch of Stoners was amazing. Super fantastic. We got invited to do a rolling station. And I will tell you, Mr. Weedman brought in some home grow to share with people. They were
3
welcome.
ounces.
Yeah. We had like 7 spots set up with our 8 Decade smoke sets, and people could come and sit down. If they had their stuff from home, they were welcome to use our rolling trays and our tools and roll up a joint, stuff a cone. And if they didn't have any weed, we were sharing ours.
Yes. I bought
And
5 different strains.
5 different strains, most indica. I think you had 1 sativa,
Yeah.
2.
I had it was a
3
couple
indicas and
hybrids.
hybrids.
And, yeah.
So it was just great. It was so fun. It was such a cool, diverse crowd.
And we also educated
ages.
too. What I
Yeah,
liked about when I came in with the home grow, I let people. I walked you and I both either walked the 5 jars over and let them smell and look at a bud and say which one goes well with your nose. What sense like
What
of
appeals
smell,
to you.
what appeals to you in your nose, because you taste through your nose, right? And that's what we were doing. So it was very interesting to see what people picked out of the 5 strains. It was great. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It was just great. We had just had nonstop flow of people, great conversation. There were people that were like, "Hey, I got it. Don't need your help. Just get me set up." And there were people who, like, "I don't have any idea what I'm doing. Can you help me?" And they successfully rolled a joint. So it was fun. It was, something that some people hadn't ever
We were
tried
packed.
before. We were jammed. We really rocked. We got out. I saw the food. Crybaby Sweets looked amazing. Didn't get any. There was a charcuterie or a prosciutto
Prosciutto?
shaving station. There was a shit ton of food and coffee.
I didn't get, there was.
The ton. We just didn't have any time to eat. Like, I popped my head around the corner just to see what was happening.
I sat down at 12 and didn't get up until 3.
Yeah, it was
Till it was
crazy.
over.
But the Brunch of Stoners was a great, again, another amazing event. I think the biggest difference this week, this event, or maybe not difference, but little difference, was the age demographic was really huge.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. There were more I would say middle-aged, like our age and older people than there had been at prior ones. So it was a really nice dynamic of people, and people that had not experienced it before were saying how much they really enjoyed being in this cannabis-only environment and how just great it was.
Yep.
And happy and friendly and social and safe. It was just so great. Outdoor on the patio, I popped my head out there at one point. They had the student glass going. So there was a smoke bar out there. There was a dabs bar. They were giving out, the botanist was giving out Italian ice that was infused.
I didn't even know that. I didn't
Yeah,
get
there
one.
was just some
I never
cool,
had a chance.
really cool stuff going on. So if you, in the future, are looking for a fun experience, Brunch of Stoners is definitely
So much fun. I think that October is their next event.
I think so.
From what they were saying. So yeah,
And they're starting to do like some yoga nights and like weed and yoga.
Felix, Elena, and all the staff there, Brunch of Stoners,
They're awesome.
So much fun, and hopefully we get invited back to do another come smoke with us station.
Yeah,
it was or come roll with us station, and it was so much fun. So thanks everybody for stopping by the table, talking with us, experimenting, smelling. Like really
great.
learning on top of that. People had a lot of questions. There was a lot of curious because I mean. Most people don't know. I mean, I had 5 different strains, and I went through the 5 different strains and explained what the smells you might smell or how you might feel and the effects of them since we have experience smoking those 5. And we had people come back and saying, you grow good weed. I'm like, thanks. That's all I want to do. Just grow good weed. I'm not looking to be the best fucking grower of all times. I just want to grow good weed so people can enjoy it. So thanks, Brunch of Stoners, for having us. It was a lot of fun. So, and it was Grandma Weed's first cannabis event ever.
Yeah, and she really enjoyed it.
Yeah, she hung up at the table and helped out.
She wasn't consuming.
No, but she
enjoyed the crowd, the conversation, and it was really great.
It was really good. So Grandma Wee, we're glad you made it to your first cannabis event too. And she did not make it tonight because we gave her just a little hit of a joint and she's sleeping.
That was it.
So you ready to get the show on the way?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Let's do it.
You know what though? I think I want another dab.
All right.
Yeah, let's do one.
Start it up.
Start it up. And before I just leave it there, pass it over. So I'll start this article. So yeah, why not, right? Let's dab it up. Ooh, yeah, there you go. Green it out. There you go. THC tolerance. What is it and why does it happen? THC is one of the only plant cannabinoids that can cause people to develop tolerance. When THC binds to the cannabinoid receptors in part of the brain that controls pain, the sensation of pain is decreased. Down regulation of cannabinoid receptors can cause tolerance to THC through tolerance buildup is reversible. When consuming cannabis, do you notice that it takes a higher dose to feel the effects? It could mean you've developed a THC tolerance. Tolerance occurs when your bodies get used to the substance of medication after regular use. More is than needed to deliver the same effects in a prior low doses. Many medications, substances can cause raised tolerance, such as opioids, benzos, alcohol, and antidepressants. However, THC is one of the only plant cannabinoids in which people can develop a tolerance. Hold on one second. I'm going to dab real quick.
That's really tasty. It tastes like candy.
Oh, that's wonderful. The science of THC tolerance. To understand how tolerance to THC happens, look to the endocannabinoid system, which we've talked about. When stressed, sick, or injured, our cells make and release endocannabinoids that act like keys. Endocannabinoids bind to the active cannabinoid receptors, which acts like locks on the membrane of many of our cells. When the key endocannabinoid system binds to the lock cannabinoid receptor, the cell changes its message and goes into action, working to minimize damage from the stressors. This system is crucial to our health and keeps us in homeostasis or balance. It's central survival mechanism that controls essential psychological functions such as sleep, appetite, pain, perception, etc., etc. THC and cannabinoid receptors. THC mimics endocannabinoids by binding the cannabinoid receptors and triggering the same reaction. When THC in the right dose binds to the cannabinoid receptors in the part of the brain that controls pain, the sensation of pain decreases. When it binds to the receptors in the part of the brain that regulates anxiety, anxiety decreases. Amazingly, cannabinoid receptors are the most widespread receptors in our brains. The number of cannabinoid receptors change in response to what's happening around them in the brain. Scientists call the increase of cannabinoid receptors upregulation and the decrease downregulation. Here's how each performs in the brain. Upregulation occurs in times of stress, inflammation, or illness when the brain and body need help getting back into homeostasis. For example, animals that are sleep deprived show an increase in their brain cannabinoid receptors, and individuals with depression who committed suicide showed an upregulation of their cannabinoid receptors on autopsy. Interesting. These increases are considered compensatory and aim to provide more sites for endocannabinoid binding. Downregulation occurs when there are fewer receptors available for binding. When overactivated by excessive THC, some receptors move from their location on the cell wall and hide within. When the receptors are internalized into the cell, THC cannot bind or activate the receptor, resulting in fewer effects. Downregulation is the mechanism in which tolerance to THC develops. THC use patterns, namely potency and frequency, as well as a person's unique response to THC, will determine how quickly and how much tolerance will develop. THC tolerance is completely reversible. It takes a minimum of 48 hours of THC abstinence for cannabinoid receptors to reappear on the cell wall and reverse tolerance buildup. Remember I told you there was a couple times I went out of town and I didn't smoke for like 24, 48 hours, and I came back and I was higher. I was like, whoa, let's go. Tolerance to THC is considered regionally selective, meaning that one part of the brain may develop tolerance quicker or slower than the other part of the brain. That's interesting. If you notice that you need higher doses of THC to get the same effects, then and the duration of the effects you use to get with a lower dose, you've likely developed a tolerance. Do you think you've developed a tolerance?
I think I've developed quite a tolerance.
Yes, I think you have to smoke a little more, but I don't think you smoke like that much more. You know. To get to where you want to be,
right.
I don't think you smoke I don't think you're smoking 2 joints to where you need to be.
No, but I could pace myself and smoke a joint by myself over maybe an hour.
Yeah,
that probably. Kind of thing. Yeah. Where before it was like 1 or 2 hits, and it would be many hours before I'd pick it up again.
How can you avoid or fix tolerance to THC? By downregulating your cannabinoid receptors with excessive THC use, you lose binding sites for the THC. Your inner cannabis endocannabinoids have fewer receptor targets as well. This can result in increased mood issues, decreased effects for pain, and disturbed sleep. In other words, you don't want to reduce the number of cannabinoid receptors so much that you lose all of the wonderful benefits of THC. Yes, because you opened your endocannabinoid system up to it now, so you want to keep it. But it's fine to take a little bit of a break, Luckily, you could try several strategies to avoid, minimize, or reverse THC tolerance. Abstinence. Take a 48-hour or longer abstinence break. It's the easiest and most effective way to reestablish THC sensitivity. Be aware that when restarting consumption of THC, especially if you take a long break, it may be significantly more potent and feel extra stony, baloney, since more receptors are in action. Some people take like a 1 to 3 tolerance breaks per year, lasting anywhere between a few days to a month. I don't know if I would do a full month.
No.
Probably just a couple days, like a Monday, Tuesday. CBD. One strategy is to include CBD in your daily regimen. Today's looking at a 1-to-1 plant-derived pharmaceutical tincture reported minimal development of tolerance, and CBD affects how tightly THC binds to the cannabinoid receptors. Additionally, you can use CBD during a tolerance break to treat any discomfort that may come up. Trying new strains. The strategy may not be reverse tolerance completely, but it might provide better and continued efficiency due to difference in cannabinoids and terpene makeup. Additionally, switching consumption methods, like switching from vaporization to tinctures or from high-potency concentrates to flower, may help the development of tolerance. I think our soiree of how we use cannabis has helped our tolerance. Not like we go from hash, we go to edibles, we smoke 20, 30 different strains. We're never smoking the same strain twice. We might smoke one for like 2 days, and then move on to the next one. Yeah, and then we go back to, we just go through the gauntlet of weed strains that we've grown or we've gotten from Big Earl or anybody that throws some to the show. So we're always mixing our weed stuff up. We'll smoke, like I said, we smoke a couple for a couple days, and we ran out of that one. There's no more left in the grinder. Let's go to the next one. Stuff like that. So I think it's a good article. How you feeling there? Too. How you feeling there?
A little spacey.
Can you make it?
I can
this
do
one?
it.
You got this?
I can do it.
All right.
I got it.
Our little doggy friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dogs are happier in stressful situations when they use CBD, or this may be the case. Dog owners often welcome their pets as family members with comfy beds and beloved toys. But even with all of the love in the world, some doggos aren't comfortable being left home alone or riding in the car. These activities can make pups so anxious that they chew things in the house or bark and whine for an entire road trip. Yes, this is annoying for the person who keeps losing their shoes to a dog's anxiety attack, but what's worse is the root of the problem. The dog is nervous and scared. The furry family member deserves to be happy-go-lucky, and one study shows how CBD can help. An original research article published in Frontiers in Veterinary Science uncovered that CBD can reduce anxiety in dogs. The Welltham Pet Care Science Institute in the United Kingdom conducted the blinded parallel design study on 40 dogs of various breeds, ages, and sexes in high-stress situations. 40 healthy adult beagles, labs, and Norfolk terriers were housed in pairs with indoor and outdoor space and tons of activities. The dogs were at the kennel over a period of 6 months, where they went through training and socialization programs. The dogs were split into 2 groups that depicted a balanced view of the 3 breeds and the various ages of the participants. Their ages varied from 1 to 9 years old. Hemp flower was sourced from Canopy Growth Corporation based in Ontario, Canada, and processed by Casmira LLC in Colorado. The product was diluted with sunflower oil and dosed into capsules for the study. Capsules were tested for potency and purity, showing that they contained CBD, a little CBDV, and no THC. Participating pups were given the opportunity to get comfortable with the testing equipment and had procedures like blood tests before the study. They were also weighed to establish accurate CBD dosages, and the Waltham Animal Welfare and Ethical Review Body approved the study, and it complied with the Animal Acts of 1986. Dogs were given CBD and exposed to chronically stressful events, specifically being home alone and going for a ride in the car. Researchers observed one group of dogs within the placebo and another with CBD in the scenarios. Throughout the study, all canines were closely watched for extreme distress or other signs that they needed to be removed for their well-being. The fluffy friends were put in a room with a couple of toys, a crate with a bed, a hammock bed, an enrichment toy, a bed in the middle of the room, and a water bowl for the separation test. Handlers walked the dogs into the room, removed their lead, and left them to their own devices for 45 minutes while being observed through closed-circuit television. For the car, properly sized crates were affixed in the rear seat of a minivan. Dogs either stepped into the van or used a ramp. The trunk was closed, and the researcher sat in the driver's seat. Each dog then went on a wild ride. This doesn't sound very wild. It included 1 U-turn and 1 3-point turn, and because they remained in a closed parking lot, the speed never exceeded 10 miles per hour. Woo, wild. Cameras at the front of the crate and the rear of the car seat sent live video to the front seat where dogs were monitored for research and safety. Researchers also checked in on the dogs through the rear view mirror, but remained silent for the testing period. Stress levels were measured in multiple ways. Blood samples were also taken before, during, and immediately after the test to measure serum cortisol, immunoglobulin A, and glucose. Heart monitors secured around the dog's chest measured heart rate and variability, distance traveled, body position, and general activity. To assess dog behavior, trained professionals monitored video data and scored behaviors against the qualitative behavior assessment, both to establish a baseline and during the test itself. They noted each time the dog appeared relaxed, alert, anxious, and a bevy of other terms to decipher behavior patterns. It turns out CBD may help anxious dogs. The placebo group had significantly higher cortisol levels for the car test and both tests combined, but not for the separation test alone. Immunoglobulin A and glucose levels were steady in all groups. As for heart rate, it increased in both placebo tests combined, but not a statistically significant amount in the placebo test. The CBD group saw a lower heart rate in both combined and the CAR test alone. In the CAR, all dogs acted generally anxious, nervous, and stressed. Placebo dogs were less comfortable and less relaxed than they were at the baseline, and CBD dogs showed more exploratory behaviors when analyzed. The dogs that were restless or less comfortable and less relaxed showed none of those behaviors after having CBD. On the whole, separation dogs in the CBD group showed fewer sad behaviors and tended to be more explorative than placebo dogs in stressful scenarios. Researchers concluded that 4 milligrams of CBD does have some behavioral and psychological effects on acute anxiety and stress-inducing events. And even with the limitations, this study shows promising results for anxious dogs in circumstances that happen to be regular and often. With CBD, dogs may feel happier and more comfortable, and that's promising news for sure. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think that's great. So, we like hash.
We do.
And wanted to do some research, so I looked up some older articles about hash rosin 101 lessons experienced solventless extractors, and we've talked about solventless and solvents, when it comes to extractions and stuff like that. But Mrs. Weedman's new to hash, right, on a consistent base.
In terms of ingesting it, yes. I've known what it is.
Yeah, you've seen the big
but
balls.
Using it,
using it, yes. And so since you started using hash on a regular basis, what do you think about it versus flower? And we know you love flower and you love joints.
I need to... I guess it's hard to do like a compare by compare because you're not going to get the same variety. You're not going to get a bud. You're not going to get flower that's the same variety, right? Or can you?
Say that again?
Can you get flower? Like, can you... Strawberry Kush. Can you get Strawberry Kush hash?
If someone decides to make it, yeah.
Okay, so that would be an interesting way to, like, really... I guess I don't...
Well, you've smoked 3 different strains now. You smoked the Terp Cherry just now.
Right.
The Blackberry Kush and the Triangle Kush.
All right, so where I'm going with this is that I don't recognize a different high.
Okay.
Maybe a little less just, like, thick, brain foggy. Like, you don't feel as... but that could also be the strain. I haven't smoked the strain before, so I don't feel as like foggy. But what I do notice is that it's an easier smoke. It's more gentle, and it's so much more flavorful.
Yeah, very flavorful.
But the
huge.
high, I don't recognize like this some profound difference between smoking and a joint.
I don't know the THC percentage on these 3. And I don't think they're very high. I would say they're between 60, maybe high 60s, low 70s, which is fucking, to me, perfect. I don't need the 80s and 90s, and which is, I mean, I have smoked some of that before.
Right.
More so in the carts than I have in just pure hash, rosin, and or hash in general. So I'm a little bit more alert. Everything's more crisp. But I'm not heady. Mm-hmm. And you're 100% right. The flavor is
hands down
crazy.
Yeah. And it's not hot. It's not harsh on your throat.
Right.
It's not harsh on your lungs.
Yeah, it's nice little water coming through that pipe, through that bong, and it's just like so smooth.
Well, my thing, I wanted to start working with hash and using hash because I want less carcinogens. I want pure, clean product so I don't have to feel bad about ingesting it through smoking.
Right. So basically, made with no water, no more than water, heat, pressure, and a few tools, hash rosin has become one of the most prized forms of cannabis resin today. Most hash rosin is made by squishing ice water hash instead of flour at the right temperature and pressure levels for yields that fail to rival solvent extractions. It also requires high quality and properly maintained starting material to match the flavor and melt quality of something made with hydrocarbon solvents. There are also varying qualities of hash rosin, but thanks to the taste of concentrate connoisseurs, products like live rosin have become the most expensive and limited cannabis products being sold today. To better understand many forms of modern hash rosin, this journalist sat down with solventless extractors from Michigan. Solventless extractors, today's hash makers, press their hash into rosin and don the titles of solventless extractors. The extractors this writer spoke with to several years of experience working with rosin. After originally outsourcing their plant material to other hash makers for years, the founder of this company started Super Solventless to create some of the highest grade single source hash rosin in Michigan. Seeing jars with labels and blah, 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 who cares? Let's get into the real good nitty gritty. Not all hash is made equal. When it comes to hash rosin, terms like 90U and 120U are different parts of the trichome separated by size. That's key. When it comes to hash rosin, terms like 90U and 120U are different parts of the trichome separated by the U or the backwards U to be accurate in a measurement that refers to the different micron sizes of the holes in multiple bags used to filter and separate trichomes from the rest of the plant during the washing process. So when I received my hash, that was what was told to me. So I knew exactly what microns that person was using, the micron sizes and the holes in it, which I thought was genius. That I found out right away, and I liked what the decision I was making. Now I felt a little bit better that maker knew exactly what
he was providing.
Yes. So the micron sizes of the holes in the multiple bags used to filter and separate trichomes from the rest of the plant during the washing process. Washing is slang for making ice water hash. More specifically, it is when plant materials put into a bucket of ice water and stirred before it is strained, leaving only hash behind. However, it's worth noting that dry sift hash can be made without water and ice, but most of the live rosin on shelves today is made by turning ice water hash made with freshly frozen materials into rosin. In fact, all four of the hash makers this person's interview uses ice water hash over dry sift material when making their rosin. Beyond that, different hash makers include or exclude certain trichome sizes from their final product. As a result, certain jars of hash and rosin being sold in the market are labeled 90U or 120U, full spectrum, or some range in between. Differences in micron sizes. This maker compared washing flour to straining pasta. Big holes let the water out and keep all the stuff you want isolated from falling through. However, in the case of making hash, multiple strainers with smaller and smaller holes are needed to separate the different parts of the trichome from the rest of the plant. So when you're looking at something like 120U up close, you're going to see things that are intact, basically a stalk and glandular head right up to the top. Then when you see a 90U or 73U, you're mainly going to see heads that have been knocked off the stalks. You can even see them both individually in the 73 and the 93U. That generally is what melts really well, followed down by 45U and 25U. So remember that. Heads that have been knocked off the stalks, you can see them individually in the 73 and 93U. Is generally what melts really well. 73 and 93U. The trichome head has proven to be the most prized component of the plant. The fact that they mostly end up in 90 and 73U bags, as this maker describes, is why jars of pure 90 or 73U hash rosin have become more expensive and desired than full spectrum hash by some. To get a better idea of what goes into the rosin, they're asking these questions. So what is full spectrum hash rosin? When asked if you leave the 25U or anything else out there, full spectrum rosin, the maker says we do not. Our motto, our philosophy and principle is to be full spectrum from the beginning to the end of the process. According to the maker, 90U to 73U are the meat and potatoes of your dinner plate, and make up the majority of the weight of the yield. In fact, this maker claimed 90U only makes up 70% of your wash. The maker warned consumers that if you see product that's labeled 90U and you see that same strain from the same company in full spectrum form as well, there's a chance the 90 or 73U were left out of that full spectrum. That means you're only getting about 30% of the actual hash spectrum despite the full spectrum label. Interesting.
Wow.
When asked if this maker prefers to smoke 90U over full spectrum, the maker said he personally feels 90U lacks certain flavors and the entourage effects from missing cannabinoids that would have been in the full spectrum. This maker has a full product, full spectrum, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Which microns make the cut? This is more important. In response, this other hash maker responded, 45 to 159U is what I use for my full spectrum. This maker of hash added that he leaves out the 25 and the 159 because in this person's opinion, it's all the broken stalks and the little pieces of the heads that fall through. This hash maker added that you would have to wash an extremely large quantity of the 25U to amount of anything worthwhile. Another hash maker says, I catch 40 to 159. I've done 25 before and never went above 159U. The reasoning for this is it just makes the color a little bit darker, and a lot of people base the quality on color. This maker didn't know much of a difference as far as the effects. Yields are obviously a little bit better if you are throwing in those bags, but this maker will sacrifice the yield for the lighter color. Let's see here. Never judge a book by its cover. Hash makers are tasked with selecting strains of flower that provide a sustainable yield and desirable characteristic after being washed and pressed into rosin. When asked what the favorite strain, this one hash maker says, I would say Purple Pebbles as well as TKP, and TKP was very deceptive when they first ran it through their pheno hunt. The plant to the naked eye doesn't look covered in frost like the cookies strains. Despite a lack of visible frost on the plant, he assured the yields from washing the TKP were surprisingly high. Let's see here. Mason jar test wash. This hash maker admits he made a mistake of judging how well a strain would wash based on the quality of its appearance. After putting in tons of work processing extremely large bulk of flour for friends that ended up looking far better than it yielded, this maker learned his lesson the hard way. Since it's impossible to rely on looks alone to tell how well a strain will wash after the harvest, this hash maker recommends paying attention to the genetics and performing of a small mason jar test before washing an entire grow and being surprised it didn't yield enough to break even. This hash maker said, when sourcing starting materials, solventless extractors, you have to truly look for what strains are going to wash well. You have to look at the parents, and then as you're growing them too, you could tell by the size of the heads if you're scooping it. A new thing that they started doing in a test wash, you can put a small amount of flour in a mason jar and wash and ice, then start swishing it around to see if those heads will fall off. Because it can be the frostiest plant ever, like the Mac, and not dump it all. It's got to want to let the heads go because we're not after the stalk. Live rosin versus cured. Most modern hash makers exclusively work with live or freshly frozen starting materials. This is best illustrated by the fact that only one of the 4 hash makers this writer interviewed for this article currently processes dried or cured flour. Let's see here. Single source or outsourcing flour for hash rosin. A few asked hash makers had noticed the differences when extracting flour they grew themselves versus outsourcing plant material. Growing for hash, for starters, defoliating as much as possible, trying to get the best surface material you can. On top of that, they crank a room down as cold as they can. You, Mrs. Weedman, can't work in there because you'd be freezing. Another reason is because they've taken people's materials and it doesn't always yield well. This hash maker doesn't want to be the bearer of bad news. So there's also mechanical separation versus jar separation. There's rosin jam, which looks phenomenal. One is called Jar Tech, which was about anyone should be able to do at home with a jar of fresh pressed rosin, a source of heat, time, and practice. The consistency it creates has been called jam or caviar by superior solventless. It contains small crystals with a more liquidy, high terpene layer. The flavors combine to create applesauce-like consistency that is less likely to change in room temperature than fresh pressed rosin. Interesting. There's mechanical separation and hash making, and that's really about it. So fortunately, today's hash is far more refined and versatile. Made in under the right condition, it looks lighter and color and can take on the form of dry sif, ice wax, rosin, live rosin, jam, or mechanically separated hash rosin. Not to mention the various consistencies that rosin can be shifted into, like cake batter, sugar, or applesauce. Pork chops.
And applesauce.
And applesauce, Mrs. Weedman. What is the science of vaping cannabis oil and concentrates?
Yes, I get really caught up on all this.
That's why I gave you the article.
I grew up in a smoking household. Mr. Weedman smoked for years. I smoked before having kids. Like, I don't know that vaping is the answer. I really don't. And so what scares me about it in my head is that we just don't know. It hasn't been around long enough. So when I think about cannabis, that's why I'm trying to go with this whole hash route and vaporizing, because I'm talking about like vapor, like vapes with cartridges. Most of them in the market have additives. So let's get into this. This is the science of vaping cannabis oil and concentrates. Vaping and smoking both involve applying high temperatures to a material in order to cause it to transform from a solid or liquid into an aerosol, allowing it to be inhaled. The difference between vaping and smoking lies in how high the temperature is. At relatively low temperatures, molecules simply vaporize, changing from solid or liquid into an aerosol. If things are hot enough, combustion occurs. This causes the same molecules to not only vaporize, but then to convert into other things. For instance, THCA, the raw cannabis plant, becomes THC. It can also cause them to degrade into potentially harmful byproducts. When you smoke something by applying a flame or a very hot heating element to your flower, you're inhaling a mixture of what you want, the vaporized cannabinoids, terpenes, etc., together with degradation byproducts. The vaporization temperature needed to make something inhalable depends on the specific molecule that you're talking about, as well as its physical substrate that it's in. For example, the vaporization temperature for THC is different for dried flower compared to a concentrated oil, and will also vary between different types of concentrates. In general, the temperature needed to vaporize THC and other cannabinoids in flower is lower, at roughly 392 degrees Fahrenheit. Many vaporization devices for concentrates use temperatures ranging from 428 at the low end to 752 at the high end. Concentrates are often consumed using very hot heating elements, which involve combustion of the product. So let's say you vaporize a cannabis concentrate at a relatively low temperature, like 572 degrees Fahrenheit. Will the experience be different than if you smoke the same amount of the same product using very high temperatures where combustion is occurring? Well, yes. For one thing, the smoke arising from the combusted material will likely contain particles of a different size than vapor, affecting their ability to be absorbed in the lungs. In addition, much of the smoke and therefore THC will be lost to the environment. Every time someone coughs out or exhales a big cloud of smoke, they're losing THC. The smoke will contain less THC simply because some of it will degrade into other things, which you will also inhale. In a 2018 study looking at the effects of smoked versus vaporized cannabis flower, vaporization tended to produce higher levels of intoxication compared to smoking when the same amount of material was held constant. This was interpreted to mean that vaporizers are a more efficient way to deliver THC to the body than traditional smoked preparations. Consumers commonly report that the high from vaporized versus smoked cannabis feels different, often preferring the subjective effects from smoking. Assuming this is true, even when consuming the exact same amount of THC, what could explain it? Well, one answer could be that cannabis smoke can contain many other things not found in vapor. One key difference between cannabis smoke and vapor is that smoke typically has higher levels of carbon monoxide, which outcompetes oxygen for access to red blood cells. This leads to mild hypoxia, or less oxygen getting delivered to the body's tissues. In a recent conversation with Dr. Echo Ruffer, a toxicologist at PAX, she hypothesized that the mild hypoxia associated with smoking may contribute to different subjective effects compared to vaporized cannabis, which some consumers might prefer. Further testing will be required to determine whether this hypothesis is correct. However, higher temperatures are more likely to generate more harmful thermal degradation byproducts. Flavor will also differ for vaping compared to smoking, and for vaping at one temperature versus another. For cannabis, a lot of flavor comes from the terpenes, the small aromatic compounds found in many products. Terpenes vaporize at lower temperatures than cannabinoids. For this reason, the ratio of terpenes to cannabinoids will change across a range of vaporization temperatures. Lower temperatures will tend to have a higher terpene to cannabinoid ratio and more terp flavor. Whether this is desirable or not depends on your own taste. However, higher temperatures are more likely to generate harmful thermal degradation byproducts. If you're using a temperature-adjustable vaporization device, it's worth trying a range of temperatures to see how this influences the flavor and smoothness of the vapor. So let's explore the health risks of vaping versus smoking. Assuming your cannabis product does not contain harmful additives and your device is properly designed, vaporization will produce far fewer potentially harmful byproducts compared to combustion smoking. The lower the temperature, the less likely it is that you're inhaling things beyond what your starting material contains. Smoke is definitely more harmful than vapor in terms of the volume and diversity of potentially harmful compounds that you inhale. The composition of tobacco smoke has been intensively studied, and over 90 harmful and potentially harmful constituents have been identified. This includes things like carcinogens, which is why tobacco smoking carries an increased cancer risk. Although nicotine is the psychoactive and main addictive component of tobacco smoke, it is actually the harmful byproducts of the burned plant material that are responsible for tobacco smoke's carcinogenicity. Whew, that's a big one.
Yeah, it is.
Well, there are also purely physical considerations of vapor versus smoke with respect to lung health. Smoke is hotter and denser than vapor, which means it'll be more irritating and physically damaging to the lungs. Again, that's assuming your vaporized product doesn't contain additional harmful additives. That's the key, right? Important caveats aside, vaporization will almost always carry fewer health risks than smoking. So what about these additives, or they also call them dilutants? What are they that are in vapes? Well, compared to nicotine products, cannabis oil has a very useful property. It can be inhaled as is, not requiring the use of dilutants or synthetic flavor, mixed with synthetic flavor additives. Most nicotine vape products contain 1 to 5% nicotine. The majority of products consist of dilutant used to dilute the nicotine down to these levels. Nicotine vapor can become highly irritating and produce undesirable effects in the nicotine concentration if it's too high, which is why dilutants are used. No one would want to vape a nicotine product with 90, 50, or even 20% nicotine. So that means 95% up to 99% of what's in a nicotine vape is chemical additives.
Yep.
Yikes. Cannabis concentrates, I didn't realize that it was that different from a cannabis concentrate. or cartridge. Cannabis concentrates are often very high in THC, with concentrations routinely above 75% and often even 95 to 99% THC in distillates. Cannabis oil simply doesn't need to be diluted in the same way nicotine does to avoid intense physical irritation and side effects, or to achieve the desired psychoactive effects. Sometimes dilutants are used in cannabis oil, but this is typically done to maintain consistent THC levels across product batches. These cannabis dilutants are used in much smaller concentrations than nicotine vape products, typically consisting of things like botanical terpenes, which are native to raw cannabis oil. Occasionally, you may see cannabis oils containing other dilutants such as PG or VG, both commonly used in nicotine vape products. However, cannabinoids vaporize at higher temperatures than nicotine, so it's possible that vaping cannabis oil containing these dilutants will produce vapor with potentially harmful byproducts. It's important to emphasize that illicit cannabis vape products should be avoided altogether. These contain dilutants or additives that may be very harmful or even deadly. The EVALI public health crisis from a few years back involved illicit market cannabis vape products containing vitamin E acetate, leading to a number of deaths. There are also hardware considerations for vaporizing cannabis. One key design feature is the air path of the cannabis vapor, which should never pass over the internal electronic components of the device. These electronic components contain very heavy metals or residue solvents that are used in the manufacturing process. Your cannabis vapor can pick up these nasty things if it comes in contact with the internal components of the device. Fortunately, most reusable cannabis vaporization devices from well-established brands are designed to prevent this. However, you will need to look at the design specifications to be sure. It is more common to see disposable vaporization devices where the air path comes in contact with internal components. And that's not good, guys. Don't use that. So, check out your devices. Consider vaping.
Vaporization.
Vaporization
Yes.
is the future.
Did you notice the name of the doctor?
I did. We have a new baby in the family.
Born on Mr. Weedman's
Mr.
birthday.
Weedman's birthday. Super exciting.
So
And
excited.
her name is Little Miss Echo.
Echo.
And ironically, I've never known
And this
anybody
is
to have
two
the name
Echoes.
Echo. And the doctor who is referenced in this research was Dr. Echo.
Echo.
First name Echo. I was like, no way. Come on. How is that possible? Welcome to the world, Miss Echo.
There you go. Over $87 million spent on cannabis in Maryland's first month of adult use. Congratulations, Maryland. Housing Works Cannabis Company brought in $12 million during its first 6 months in New York. They get 1,000 unique visitors on a busy day. It's crazy.
Crazy.
New York cannabis licensing could be halted by veterans' lawsuit because veterans felt like they were didn't get a choice in getting any kind of dispensary licensing or anything like that. So there's a lawsuit, so now it's going to take even longer. Over 75% of Delta-9 hemp products illegally modified, shows a study. A recent study reveals that over 75% of Delta-9 hemp goods sold in the U.S. have been illegally modified or sourced from cannabis, marijuana. Wow. Florida marijuana initiative in jeopardy despite having 1 million signatures because of that attorney general who's really fighting to stop this from going through. Don't listen to your constituents, DeSantis, and everybody you put in place, because they went out and got the signatures to get this done, and now you're trying to stop it. So I hope you all get voted out, all of you, every single one of you, because you don't. That just proves to me that you don't listen to your voters. Right there.
Right there.
More than 6,500 signatures submitted to get the cannabis marijuana issue on a November ballot in Ohio. Remember on the last episode, they needed 679, and they got 6,545 signatures above and beyond.
Yeah.
It's going to pass. It's going to go wreck. It's going to go wreck. I believe in you, Ohio. Spent a lot of time in Columbus and Akron and Cincinnati and Cleveland. So the 3 C's. Let's go. Do it. Illinois sets a 2023 marijuana sales record with 140 million in recreational purchases in July. Still hasn't beaten the December of 2022, which was the biggest ever, but still pretty good. Illinois, you've been maintaining. You're good. You're in between like the 120s and the 150s. You're right where you're going to be at. Good job. There's only one dispensary in Minnesota after August 1st, and it's on an Indian reservation. Red Lake Dispensary, on the first day of recreational sales, they crushed it. They had to like turn people away because they had no more weed. So good for you. It's going to be a hard minute before they're talking about like 2024, 2025 is when like most of the Minnesota dispensaries are going to open. If I was you, Minnesota, you have some dope ass home grow laws. I mean, and you can grow how many pounds? 2 pounds, and hold up to how many pounds? Was like 8 or something crazy like that when we read it. Mm-hmm. I mean, yo, you just better get some community grows going and all chip in, like, and just grow in one room of a house, and you'll be golden, man. You'll never have to wait for weed coming from cultivators and trying to get these dispensaries open. I mean, I'd just be growing home grow like crazy. I'd build a big old greenhouse in my backyard. Caregiving programs work really well right about now, Minnesota. Judge orders reinstatement of Jersey City cop who was fired after testing positive for cannabis. Good. I think police officers and people in that sort of line of work should, off duty, they should be able to smoke cannabis off duty. Mrs. Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
What cities consume the most cannabis in the world?
Yeah.
And the four horsemen are in the United States.
Yep.
And I tell you what, man, straight A genetics, this terp cherry boy. Phew.
Yummy. Well, did you ever wonder how your city stacks up when it comes to cannabis consumption? Big Apple residents, you are ahead above the competition. New York City has the highest yearly cannabis consumption of any major city in the world, according to new data from the Center for Advancing Health. The city consumes, get this, about 62.3 metric tons, a shit ton, of weed in a calendar year, far ahead of number 2, Sydney, Australia, at 45.8 metric tons. U.S. cities take 4 of the top 10, with Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston.
Home team.
Yep. Also landing on the list. Rome, Prague, and Vienna represent Europe in the top 10, despite weed being illegal in all 3 cities. Meanwhile, Toronto represents for Canada, and Tokyo is the lone representative for Asia. Tokyo has the world's most expensive cannabis prices at $33.80 per gram. Meanwhile, Montreal has the world's cheapest prices, coming in at $5.90 a gram, and Portland, Oregon has the cheapest prices in the U.S., hovering around $7 per gram. The study also found that cannabis legalization leads to lower prices, with costs falling about 11.13% on average. If you're looking to take a cannabis vacation anytime soon, don't forget to check out this entire study that ranked the world's top weed-friendly destinations for U.S. tourists. Number 1, New York. Number 2, Sydney. 3, L.A. 4, Chicago.
Home team.
24.9 metric tons per year. Rome is number 5, Houston 6, Toronto 7, Tokyo 8, Prague 9, and Vienna is 10.
Houston, state's not even legal, and they smoke 18.5 metric tons a year.
Yeah. They do some smoking.
Not even legal in their top 6. That's fucking awesome. Good for you, Houston. I need to come down there and smoke some weed with some fine folks down in Houston. I created this song in my head real quick and about New York. And the Frank Sinatra song. New York, New York, the number 1 on the list. I want to wake up in a city that smells like weed and find I'm smoking big doinks A number one, smoking that fat kush. New York.
Right.
That's that terp cherry talking there.
Yeah, I think that is.
International news. Auckland Cannabis Museum opens with a bong, weed prescriptions, and DJ set for opening. So in Auckland, they have a weed museum, and trips can be just dope to go there, right? So Auckland, good for you. New Zealand killing it with a weed museum. It's not even legal in that, like fully recreational in that country yet. We'll see. You got a weed museum, you got to be friggin' legalizing soon there. Germany drops legalization bill. Germany went public with legalization bill earlier this month after teasing the prospects of legalization for some time. It's now being reviewed by the public and state health officials. As all goes as well, it will advance through the cabinet. Legalization in Luxembourg. A week after the German announcement, the neighboring country of Luxembourg enacted new adult use laws. Adults can now legally possess and purchase up to 3 grams of flower and grow up to 4 plants at home. Home grow, grow all you can. Ghana takes its first steps towards medical cannabis. Only a few days after a big announcement from Europe, Ghana's parliament made their own moves. Africa News reported approval of the Narcotics Control Commission Amendment Bill, opening doors for medicinal industrial cannabis. Good for you. New Zealand updates imports-export laws. New Zealand has also altered its medical cannabis laws in the past weeks. The Manatuahorora Ministry of Health issued the changes. The most notable updates apply to the import and export of cannabis seeds, plant material, and infused products. That museum is talking. Cannabis products, start material, seeds, and cannabis-based ingredients can be exported and imported for testing, analysis, and research. The changes also expanded the definition of starting material and cannabis-based ingredients. Good for you, New Zealand. I love it. Which city in the world has the most expensive weed? Latest news. Portugal approves new drug laws. Personal cannabis consumption expanded. Uruguay's cannabis facility shuts down, leaving unemployed workers seeking compensation. About 300 people were let go. Canadian market takes the lead. The adult use cannabis sales surpassing U.S. figures. Crazy. And new study reveals how cannabis prices vary around the globe. Tokyo has the most expensive cannabis at $33.8 per gram, like Mrs. Weedman said. On the contrary, cannabis connoisseurs living in Montreal pay nearly 6 times less for the same amount of marijuana. On the legal side, Bangalore, India has the cheapest illicit market at $6 per gram. Countries where cannabis consumption is surging are 30% more likely to feature lower gram prices. The Beatles.
The Beatles.
The Beatles.
They're great.
They're great. One of the probably most well-known bands in the whole world forever. So,
and according to John Lennon, the Beatles considered this particular song an excited ode to cannabis. The Beatles were about to enter into a whole new phase of their career during the summer of 1964. As Beatlemania reached its zenith in America, the band toured relentlessly around the world, eventually returning to North America during the summer months. It had only been less than 6 months since they had introduced themselves on The Ed Sullivan Show, but after the release of A Hard Day's Night, everyone in the world seemingly knew who the Beatles were. EMI was eager to have the band capitalize on their success by returning to the studio at every available chance. The Beatles' record contract stipulated that they provide a seemingly endless parade of albums and singles. So it was imperative that the members who wrote down and remembered new material as quickly as possible. For Paul McCartney, a walk around London's St. John's Wood birthed the idea for a future single, She's a Woman. I have a recollection of walking around St. John's Wood with that in my mind, so I might have written it at home and finished it upon the way to the studio, finally polishing it in the studio. Maybe just taken John aside for a second and checked with him. What do you think? Like it? Good? Let's do it, McCartney recalled to Barry Miles in the book many years from now. The idea for She's a Woman came quickly, as did the song's arrangement and recording. Lennon's guitar stabs were punctuated by Ringo Starr's drums and the addition of a Portuguese percussion instrument called the chocalho. Often, one of us would come up with something that put a spark in the recording, and I think the spark on the recording of She's a Woman was the combination of John's backbeat guitar and my bass. McCartney remembered in the book the lyrics, 1956 to the present. For his part, Lennon remembered being excited to include a reference to his and the rest of the band's favorite new drug, weed. That's Paul, with some contribution from me on lines probably, Lennon told David Sheff in 1980. We put in the words, turns me on. We were so excited to say, turn me on, about marijuana and all that, using it as an expression. The Beatles had only puffed on low-grade weed a small handful of times before meeting Bob Dylan in New York during their 1964 summer tour. Dylan exposed them to more potent cannabis than any of them had ever tried, and soon the Beatles were firmly in the haze of joints and spliffs. 1965 would be the band's biggest year for weed-related work, culminating in the folky slowness of that year's Rubber Soul. But the roots of their weed fascination could be heard as early as She's a Woman, one of the band's first overt nods to drugs.
There you go. And then they went into their psychedelic moment.
Yeah.
And the Yellow Submarine came out. Oh, shit. Wu-Tang Clan's Raekwon will open up a cannabis lounge in where? The heart of Jersey, where I was born, Newark, Jersey. He's going to open up a cannabis lounge. Good for him. Hopefully there's a lot of good music. And also, Jesse the Body Ventura to launch weed brand wants Minnesota's market local, not dominated by outside corporations. So Jesse the Body Ventura, who used to be the governor of Minnesota, is eyeing opportunities on the cannabis industry. He wants to become a pioneer among prominent American politicians by launching his own cannabis brand, reported Marijuana Moment. I want to be the first major politician in America who puts his likeness, face, and everything behind cannabis, he said on a panel hosted by Canna Connect Saturday, just days before legal cannabis launched in Minnesota. This is an ego thing for me. I want to have my name considered with cannabis. Well, you're kind of behind the times because Hulk Hogan's in it. Mike Tyson's in it, even though I know he's not a wrestler, but he did do a lot with the WWE back in the day with D Generation X and all that stuff. So he's got his face on it. And what is his name? There's like 2 or 3 other wrestlers that are doing it. So he's like behind. Oh, Ric Flair, of course. Woo! He's got his own cannabis brand, and so you're seeing what your other people. And he used to be a good wrestler, better commentator. So he's been around in the wrestling industry too, but he's not. He's just like more saying, "I want to be the first ex-politician to do this." Well, I mean, good luck, Jesse. Mrs. Weedman. Mr.
Weedman.
We're going to smoke some more hash because it's the end of the show.
Happy birthday, Mr. Weedman.
Thanks, Mrs. Weedman.
You're welcome.
It was great. I appreciate you. I love you all. Got anything else to say?
Have an amazing week, everybody. Stay well.
We love you out there, everybody. We appreciate everybody out there, all the love and kindness. We need a little weed in this world. We need a little love in this world. Go out there and shake hands, kiss babies, and give a lot of hugs. And as Paulie always says, smoke smart, puff, puff, and away.
Puff, puff, pass.
Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The Canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome, long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.